All right then. All right. Mic check. Mic's running. Camera's running. Notes are up. All right. Ready to do the show. Make sure I'm not overlit. I'm a white person, so you put too much white light on me, I'm it's like every other white person. Alright. Already? And self-position up. Mute my damn phone. Always mute your phone. And alright, one last quick thing here. Okay, I need to check something real quick here in the comics edition. Pull it up so I can read it. Alright. There we go. Pre-show. Tonight, Liam Neeson is done with Star Wars and Batman. We learn more about Picard's hired assassin, and Chris Evans wants to cause someone pain. All that and more on this edition of Multiverse Tonight. Comic books, sci-fi, fantasy, and more. If you're looking for a roundup of geeky news, you're in the right place. This is Multiverse Tonight. And here's your host, Thomas Townley. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 64 of Multiverse Tonight. I am, of course, your host, Thomas Townley. Well, so far we're at the halfway point of Star Trek Picard's first season. What have you thought about it so far? You know, I've enjoyed it so far, but last week's episode was kind of dark. You had the deaths of a recurring Voyager character and the next-gen guest star. I wonder when we run across Riker and Deanna. You know, they teased that real big during in the promos and everything. And so far we're halfway through the season and we have yet to get to those characters. So I'm wondering where they are. Now, I was kind of expecting that they'd show up during Jonathan Frakes' directorial run, but again, we're left empty-handed. So all that aside, I'm curious to what the follow-up show to the season is. You know, I'm hoping for, the animated series Lower Decks. I think it would be a good palate cleanser, something light, something funny. We know that Discovery's next season is still a little dark with, looks like, the Federation's almost non-existent, stuff like that. So anyway, there's a little Orville news to report. Producer Tom Costantino, who you might remember a few episodes back, I had an interview with, and I'll have another interview with him once the season's announced and all that. He showed a picture of an all-new, much larger orchestra recording a new arrangement of the theme song. I can't wait to hear it. I love a good theme song. Anyway, let's go ahead and start with some Star Wars news. Han Solo died in The Force Awakens, only to reappear as a Force ghost in The Rise of Skywalker. So I guess the question is, why? Harrison Ford, talking with Jimmy Kimmel on Jimmy Kimmel Live, said to Han's death, quote, he said, "I figured that his utility had been exhausted, bled out, and I was willing to die for the cause, bring some gravitas," unquote. Now, as far as his appearance once again in The Rise of Skywalker, he said, quote, "No good deed goes unpunished." JJ said, "This is a good idea. I, JJ, have decided that this is a good idea, and I would like you to do it," unquote. Now, when Kimmel pushed him further if he trusted J.J. Abrams, Ford quipped, quote, "Don't you?" unquote. And by the way, don't ask Harrison about little details. When a reporter for USA Today asked if his return in The Rise of Skywalker was because he was a Force ghost or just a figment of Ben Solo's imagination, the actor replied, quote, "A Force ghost? I don't know what a Force ghost is. Don't tell anyone. I'm not talking loud enough for your recorder. I have no bleep idea what a Force ghost is, and I don't care," unquote. Now, keep in mind, he only works in outer space. The Mandalorian will have someone new to play with in Season 2. According to the Mat Men Wrestling Podcast, WWE superstar Sasha Banks will be appearing in the show. Could she be in charge of something? After all, her wrestling nickname is The Boss. Disney Plus will soon be coming to the rest of the world, but even though The Mandalorian Season 1 is all out in the US, doesn't mean that everyone else won't have to wait as well. Disney Plus's UK Twitter account has released the news that, like the US release, each episode will be doled out one at a time. Disney Plus and The Mandalorian will debut in the United Kingdom on March the 24th. Liam Neeson is out of the Star Wars and Batman phase of his career. In an interview with Entertainment Tonight, the actor who has been Qui-Gon Jinn and Ra's al Ghul says he has no interest in returning to either. Quote, "I'll be honest with you, no, it's not. I'm really not a huge fan of the genre. I think it's Hollywood with all the bells and whistles and the technical achievements and stuff, which I admire. But I have no desire to go into the gym for 3 hours every day to pump myself up, to squeeze into a Velcro suit with a cape. I admire the actors, and I know some of the actors who do it, and do it fantastically. It's not my genre. It really isn't. The first Star Wars that was 22 years ago, and I enjoyed that because it was novel, and that was new. I was acting the tennis balls, which were ultimately going to be little fuzzy furry creatures and stuff. That was interesting acting-wise, to try and make that seem real, but that was the last. It's quite exhausting," unquote. Well, kind of sounds like he just doesn't want to go back into the gym again. Maybe he could portray a character, comic book character with a gut. Or one that just tells the creature to, get the hell out of the way. Anyway, the Fett Man is back. Boba Fett is back in Star Wars Bounty Hunters #1. The new comic from Marvel Comics and writer Ethan Sachs and artist Paolo Villanelli, here's the blurb, quote, "Never betray a bounty hunter, especially if it's Boba Fett. Years ago, Valance and fellow bounty hunters Bosk and Boba Fett took on a mission that went sideways in a bad way after Valance's mentor, Nakano Lash, violently betrayed them. Valance's team barely escaped. With their lives, he never thought that he'd face his old mentor ever again, until Lash finally resurfaces under mysterious circumstances. Every bounty hunter in the galaxy wants a piece, and Valance is hell-bent on getting the prize first. He has a score to settle, but so does Boba Fett." Ethan Sachs, Old Man Hawkeye and the Galaxy's Edge, and Paolo Villanelli, Vader, Dark Visions, and Jedi Fallen Order Dark Temple, are teaming up to bring you the bounty hunter adventure you've been waiting for this March. Star Wars Bounty Hunters #1 is due out on March 4th. So, you love The Mandalorian and the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. What do? Get a tattoo celebrating both, of course. A fan decided to get inked over following the win. The tattoo features Coach Andy Reid and the Mandalorian armor and MVP Patrick Mahomes as the child. Now, me personally, I never get a tattoo, but to each their own. It's really kind of a weird looking tattoo. If you didn't know that was Andy Reid, it just looked like a really, an office guy in Mandalorian armor. Yeah. Anyway, let's go on to some Star Trek news. Democratic presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg is a confirmed Trekkie. Speaking with Fox News, the candidate spoke of his love of Star Trek Picard. Now, let's go to the videotape. He said, "I finally figured out how to do the app so that I can watch Star Trek Picard. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, so I'm really excited to see where it goes. I grew up on the Next Generation. I was all about that. That's great. I'm all about free and fair elections, so get out there and vote. Don't let the Russian trolls get you down. The newest recruit on Star Trek Picard's mission is the Romulan sword fighter Elnor, played by Ivan Ivagoria. The Australian actor, who is also in the new Fantasy Island movie, spoke with comicbook.com about finding Elnor's character and his relationship with Jean-Luc Picard. On how much he had to train to be good with those swords, he said, quote, "I have no background in sword fight training whatsoever. I do have a very heavy boxing background, which can be used during fight scenes and stuff. It was pretty much the day I landed in LA, I got a phone call asking if I could come down to the studio. So I came down to the studio, I met the stunt team, I met my amazing stunt double. Anytime you see Elnor running along walls or running up and then flipping off some stuff, that's him. He can just do it the way better than I can, and he makes me look amazing." In terms of the sword fighting, I went to the studio and was given my prop sword, and we began going through sword fighting sequences and scenes from the show to start practicing. So the majority of the stuff that you see I'm doing in terms of fighting and swordplay. Unquote. On if he considers Elnor to be an outsider type character like Spock or Data, he told them, quote, "Yeah, I'd say he does. Every version of Star Trek has that character who's trying to understand the world and is looking at everything with a fresh face. I think Elnor continues that." Unquote. As to what will be coming up for Elnor in the rest of the season, Evan was, of course, evasive, but he did tell them, quote, "I don't really want to give much away, but I will say there's some nice moments between Seven of Nine and Elnor. I don't really want to give too much away because it would just spoil the story, but there's some really great moments, but that really sticks out in my memory, and I have some really good scenes with Michelle Hurd as well as Patrick. Really, it's been a great ensemble cast, and I think we all work well off of each other. And I think you'll see how all of our stories interconnect and intertwine, and how we each deal with the similar trauma we've experienced, but how it's affected each one differently." Unquote. Picard showrunner Michael Chabon is busy answering fans' questions. One response he has was to, "Why all the swearing?" His answer, quote, "Listen, no human society will be perfect because no human will ever be perfect. The most we can do, and as Star Trek ever reminds us, must do, is aspire to perfection and work to make it so. Norken foden perfecten, as a wise Yang once said, until that impossible day is going to continue to happen. And what does, humans are going to want to swear." The absence of swear words in Star Trek was never a matter of Federation principle, it was a matter of FCC rules. Writers of previous eras had no choice, they were censored. Swearing is one of humanity's most ancient, sensible, and reliable consolations. Personally, I would never consider any society that discouraged, banned, or abandoned the use of curse words to be a bleep dystopia, unquote. In other words, the swear words were always there, they just couldn't get past the censors. I think it's okay, but they should make a censored version for family viewing, you know? Or, you could just show it to your kids anyway. Anyway, what's up with Commodore O and the sunglasses? When a true Vulcan has second eyelids that would handle that bright sun. His response was that he's well aware the Vulcan wouldn't need sunglasses and suggested that it's a hint. Hint, hint. What does this accoutrement tell us about Commodore O? Hint, hint. Let's just put it this way. If something seems off, maybe you should log that away for later in the story. Maybe it has a point. Maybe it has a purpose. Hint, hint. Is Rebecca Remains #1 coming back for an encore? The actress, in a recent interview where she was launching her own line of jewelry, spoke to fashion site The Daily Front Row. She told them, quote, I've also been working on Star Trek here and there, but I can't really talk about that, unquote. She can't really talk about it? Isn't all her Star Trek stuff out? Or is there something that hasn't been released? Are we making too much of her choice of words? Probably. If anything does truly develop, I'll let you know. Jerry Ryan's 7 of 9 finally appeared in the 4th episode of Picard. However, it wasn't easy for Jerry to find Seven's voice again. The Hollywood Reporter spoke with the actress before the season began. When asked about what the biggest change she had experienced with the new show, she said, quote, "The scale of the show, the scale of these sets, the costumes, it's crazy. It's like you're doing a feature film every week," unquote. And she was also very surprised by the technical set design, saying, quote, "In one of my scenes where I had to go and work a console, we go in for the first rehearsal and I had to touch buttons and the screen actually does something. And I totally flipped out like, oh my god, actually having buttons that work," unquote. She also talked about her first day working with Sir Patrick Stewart on the set, saying, quote, "My first scene, the big scene, was the one you saw in the trailer, when we're in his office/ready room. That was my first day on set. It was daunting, not just because it was Patrick, but because I was still petrified or Patrick-fied of if I could find the character again. I was still trying to figure out who she was," unquote. However, she did have backup in finding her character thanks to director Jonathan Frakes. Quote, "I was so fortunate because Jonathan Frakes was directing my first episode. So with that, I knew I was in good hands. Frakes, more than anyone else, would get the importance of revisiting and being true to these characters, because the challenge for me is, where has she been for nearly 20 years? Finding her voice was the hardest thing for me. When I read the first script, I just couldn't hear her voice anywhere." Ryan went on to recall that it took her the first couple of takes before she felt like she found Seven. But once she did, quote, "Frakes just sort of walked in and said, 'There she is,' unquote." Her return, from my end, was excellent, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. I'm hoping that she turns up later in the story, perhaps to rescue Picard at a key moment. It's very, very good. Now, let's go on to some geek news. Well, here's a pleasant surprise. Rick Moranis is returning to acting after a 20-year hiatus to raise his children after the death of his wife. Now, he will be back in a new sequel to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids titled Shrunk. The new movie will star Josh Gad as Rick Moranis' son, Wayne Szalinski, and be directed by Joe Johnston, who also directed the original movie back in 1989. Rick has not appeared in a live-action film since 1994's Little Giants. The prequel series to the CW's The 100 has started casting. According to Deadline, Iola Evans from Amazon's Carnival Row, Adian Bradley from CW's Riverdale, and Leo Howard of Why Women Kill have been cast in the backdoor pilot for the yet-to-be-titled prequel. The backdoor pilot episode will air sometime during the 7th and final season of the show. The Stargate franchise has been quiet since 2011. MGM tried to gauge interest in a new series a couple of years ago with a prequel web series, but it apparently didn't do enough to convince the studio to go ahead with anything new. Comicbook.com checked in with creator Roland Emmerich to see where things are with anything new. Emmerich said, quote, "Yeah, I kind of talked a little bit with MGM about Stargate, but I think this is going nowhere because there was another TV show and they kind of realized that if it's like some sort of a mixed bag," unquote. It seems to me that if Stargate fans really wanted to see a new series, then you better show up. Download the old episodes, and put those on constant streaming, send letters to MGM, talk on Twitter, do stuff that shows that you want something new. or, it's going to be a long, long time before anything new is seen. The fifth Indiana Jones movie will start filming in just a few months, according to Harrison Ford. The actor, in an interview with Ellen, said that it would start sometime this summer or late summer, seemingly implying that it would be around July or August. The movie was originally scheduled to be out this May, but has been pushed all the way back to July 10th of next year. Let's hope it's just something better than the Crystal Skull. Goonies Never Say Die. Well, it looks like Fox Television has begun development of a sort of Goonies reboot. The show is about a troubled teacher who attempts to make a shot-for-shot remake of the cult film with 3 students. Here's the description, quote, "After failing to make it in New York and carrying a heavy secret with her, Stella Cooper returns to her distressed automotive hometown as a substitute teach. She finds inspiration, hope, and ultimately salvation when she agrees to help 3 students who are pursuing their filmmaking dreams by putting together an impossibly ambitious shot-for-shot remake of one of their favorite movies, The Goonies. Over the course of the season of the potential series, their passion will inspire a town in desperate need of hope in this love letter to the power of cinema, storytelling, and dreams." Unquote. So, don't hold your breath, though. This project is untitled, and it's just in the, planning stage. So it could, go all the way. It could stop right here. I'll let you know if anything develops. HBO's sci-fi comedy Avenue 5 has been renewed for Season 2. This show, starring Josh Gad and Hugh Laurie, trapped on a space liner with really horrible people, seems to have gotten over with a lot of fans. I've been enjoying the few episodes I've seen. It's a pretty good show. The Hollywood Reporter has broken the news that Chris Evans is currently in negotiations to play dentist Orin Chervello in Greg Berlanti's reboot of Little Shop of Horrors. Warner Brothers is making the movie, and other possible actors up for roles include Scarlett Johansson and Taron Egerton. No possible release date is known. Now, this next story is sad and a little strange at the same time. Veteran stuntwoman Sheryl Sanders, who has performed in Back to the Future Part 2, V.I. Warshawski, The Thomas Crown Affair, and the Lethal Weapon series, was killed in a shootout outside a $1 million home in Yellow Springs, Ohio. Fox 6 News in Ohio reports that Sheryl Sanders and her husband were shot and killed after they allegedly threatened her ex-husband Robert Duncan and his wife in the Robert's driveway. Officers responded to the shooting on February 13th in Miami Township, Ohio, and found the couple dead outside her ex's house. Sanders and her husband don't live in Ohio. They live in North Carolina, according to the county attorney. Now, Sanders' ex told the police that Sheryl pulled up in a car, got out, and went towards Duncan's wife, Molly. According to Sheriff Gene Fisher, Sheryl Sanders was, quote, threatening to kill the guy's wife, and Robert Duncan fired upon that person, unquote. Now, both Robert and Sheryl Sanders died from multiple gunshots. Apparently, this is not the first time Sheryl Sanders has attempted this. Apparently, this had been a long-planned murder attempt, as there was a surveillance camera put on the house that broadcast to a cell phone found in the couple's car, and Robert Sanders had multiple forms of ID on him. The investigation is still continuing. Well, that brings us to the end of another sci-fi edition of Multiverse Tonight. Now, be sure to check us out on social media. We're at Twitter at MultiverseTom. We're also on Facebook and Instagram as well. And if you like to contribute to further develop the show, contribute some money, go to mtpodcast.com to go to our Ko-fi, Patreon, or glow.fm links as well. And be sure to visit multiversetonight.com to check out the affiliate marketplace links, the link to our TeePublic store, our show notes, and much, much more. And if you're a subscriber, be sure to share us with your friends. And if you're brand new to the show, please be sure to subscribe. Leave us with some feedback and let us know how we're doing. Now, special thanks to Shane Ivers for our intro music and Lobo Loco for our outro theme music. Thanks for watching the sci-fi edition of Multiverse Tonight. We'll be back in just 2 days with the comic book edition. Now, please, exit the universe in an orderly fashion. Good night. Multiverse Tonight is a production of Half-Baked Genre Productions. Copyright 2020. All rights reserved. Halfway point of Star Trek Picard's. Oh, good. You always want to make sure that the show you recorded actually recorded. Saves heartache later. Alright. Ooh. Like the snow is starting in 15 minutes. It's snowing, it's raining, the old man is painting. Alright, let's get everything switched out for the comics edition. Alright. And we're ready. And a 1, a 2, this is how we do. Tonight, Birds of Prey disappoints. Bob Iger thinks he's owed a beer, and Kevin Smith masters an all-star cast of the universe. All that and more on this edition of Multiverse Tonight. Comic books, sci-fi, fantasy, and more. If you're looking for a roundup of geeky news, you're in the right place. This is Multiverse Tonight. And here's your host, Thomas Townley. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 65 of Multiverse Tonight. I'm, of course, your host, Thomas Townley. Well, what do you know? I know one thing. Rumors are just that, rumors. Now, I've been seeing rumors online that Dan DiDio's exit from DC Comics is some sort of precursor to AT&T selling off DC Comics or stopping production of comics. Take your pick. You need to look at this with a critical eye. One, there are no reliable sources, and any site I've seen a story on doesn't name where the info came from. And two, there's no corroboration. No other site is reporting this particular story. If something like this was happening, other news sites would be picking this up, more reputable news sites. Heck, CNN, MSNBC would be picking up a story like that. So, in other words, don't believe it until it actually happens or gets much better coverage. Anyway, let's go on with the DC news. Patty Jenkins thinks of Steve Trevor like an Indiana Jones type of character in Wonder Woman 1984. Quote, "He's not beta at all. He's a super alpha who can absolutely wear his discomfort on his sleeve. So from day one, I was always saying that it should almost be like Wonder Woman meets Indiana Jones, where Indiana would never be emasculated. Chris just very naturally has that quality. You can tell by meeting him that he's warm, and he's chill, and he truly appreciates women," unquote. So what does Pine think of his character's journey in the movie? Speaking with Entertainment Weekly, he said, quote, "In the first movie, I played the world-weary soldier who has seen all the depravity that humankind is capable of displaying. And in this one, I get to be much more wide-eyed and joyful. My role is really just as a friend, lover, boyfriend come bodyguard who's trying his best to help Diana on her mission. I'm like the Watson to her Holmes," unquote. Entertainment Weekly also spoke with Kristen Wiig about her transformation into the role of Cheetah. Quote, "I did not really know so much about Cheetah. Before I even talked to Patty Jenkins, there was an idea that maybe it might be about being a villain for the movie, so I went online and looked at all the villains of Wonder Woman to try and figure out which one, because I was so excited, and I was really, really happy to find out it was her. I've never really played someone who walks into the room and owns it, especially when she starts out so insecure and self-deprecating. We didn't want to see Barbara in Cheetah, and I didn't want to see Kirsten in Cheetah either," unquote. Wonder Woman 1984 opens in theaters on June 5th. Birds of Prey had a disappointing first weekend. So what did Warner Brothers do? Well, they retitled the film. Worked for Edge of Tomorrow, didn't it? Birds of Prey and the Emancipation of One Harley Quinn is now Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. It's not a bad idea. Speaking to The Verge, a representative for the studio said that the title change was to help search expansion for ticket sites, which sounds like a lot of people weren't searching for Birds of Prey, they were searching for Harley Quinn. I wonder if you call a movie Birds of Prey, maybe push Birds of Prey and not Harley Quinn in all the ads? If Harley is the entire plot of the movie, call it Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey from the very beginning. Just saying. The good news is that the film has made back its money. Let's see how it did with this week's box office report. Now, we start down at number 11 with Impractical Jokers the movie, which just opened. Yeah. Number 10 is The Photograph, which fell from number 4 to 10. Number 9 is Jumanji: The Next Level, which fell from 8 to 9. I'm surprised that that movie is still out there. That movie has been out there for 11 weeks. That's a pretty long time. Parasite has gotten back into the top 10 lately since its Oscar win. Last week it was at number 7. This week it's at number 8 as it's been released to 641 additional theaters. See, that's what an Oscar win is for. Now that's been out, or wait a minute, excuse me. Parasite's actually down 198 theaters, so it lost about 200 theaters from last week. But still, for a movie that's been out 20 weeks, that's pretty good. 1917, meanwhile, has an additional 641 theaters. It's at number 7 from number 6, dropping huge from number 3 to number 6 was Blumhouse's Fantasy Island slasher, trauma pick, call it what you will. From number 2 to go from number 3 to number 6 means it didn't retain an audience. Brahms The Boy 2 debuts at number 5. Bad Boys for Life fell from number 5 to number 4. Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, a.k.a. Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, fell from number 2 to number 3. So that's down 60% from last week. So a name change has helped, but not, totally. It's its third week. The Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford debuts at number 2. They had a story on the news about that dog. He came from Kansas. That was a kind of a neat story. Made $24 million in its first week. And in retaining the top spot is Sonic the Hedgehog, which, although it's down 54%, still came in at number 1. And that's pretty good. It's a $106 million gross in the United States. That's a movie that really has done well because they went back and fixed what was wrong with the character. I don't think it would get this kind of box office. It's up to $202.9 million worldwide. It's made back its budget and more so, $85 million budget. So yeah, this is a case of the studio going back and saying we were wrong. Let's fix this. Really came off. Let's click on Bad Boys here, or Birds of Prey really quick. Birds of Prey has made $173.4 million worldwide and had an $84.5 million budget. So it's made its money back, for being in the theater for just a couple of weeks. So it's doing fine, and I could very well see Birds of Prey 2 coming out. It just might behoove them to think about the title on the next one. Anyway, let's continue on here. DC Universe's Doom Patrol will be getting a little larger next season. Actress Abigail Shapiro is joining up as the Chief Niles Calder's daughter, Dorothy, and NCIS New Orleans Karen Obolum is coming as Ronnie Evers, a military vet with a mysterious past, who meets cyborg Vic Stone in a PTSD support group. Now, as I alluded to at the beginning of the show, a longtime co-publisher of DC Comics, Dan DiDio, is out at DC Comics. Dan is best known for Infinite Crisis, The New 52, DC Rebirth, and Doomsday Clock. Now, he's been the co-publisher of DC Comics for the past 10 years. Now, this seems to leave co-publisher Jim Lee in the driver's seat as the sole publisher and chief creative officer. DiDio's exit comes just prior to an announced new relaunch that would further dismantle parts of the 2011 New 52 reboot. Now, it's unclear at this time if that relaunch will be delayed or canceled entirely. I guess stay tuned. The Supergirl comic will end with issue number 42 in May. The issue will be written by Jody Houser with art by Rachel Slott and will pit Supergirl against the United States military. There are no plans for a brand new series. Some early images of Robert Pattinson's Batsuit have come out, but meanwhile, those faithful who still want the Snyder Cut have launched a renewed campaign for that holy grail of the Snyder Cut of Justice League. The social media profiles for Warner Media-owned companies are getting comment bombed. For example, the HBO Max Instagram page has hundreds, if not thousands, of demands that HBO Max stream the cut of the movie. By the way, there's still no verification that this cut actually exists. So they might be just yelling to the void, or maybe it's hidden away in a vault. Maybe someday when Disney owns all of media, they'll pull it out of the vaults. There it is, the Snyder Cut. Ta-da! Or not. I am such a tease. Lucifer's 5th season has been scheduled as its last, but could it get a 6th? According to TVLine.com, Netflix is currently in talks with Warner Brothers Television to make a new final season. Season 5 is currently in its final weeks of production, and it's on its final 16 episodes. Neither Netflix nor Warner Brothers has acknowledged or denied the report. Inquiring minds want to know. DC has been in the anniversary business for the past few years, putting out specials for Action Comics and DC Comics. Now it's Green Lantern's turn. DC will be celebrating the Green Hero's 80th this year. The first Green Lantern first hit print in 1940's American Comics number 16, written by Bill Finger and drawn by Martin Nodell. To celebrate this, DC is putting out the Green Lantern 80th Anniversary 100-page Super Spectacular, featuring lanterns like Alan Scott, Hal Jordan, Kyle Rayner, John Stewart, Guy Gardner, Jessica Cruz, Simon Boz, and many, many more. There will be a main cover by Liam Sharp and 8 variant covers for the 8 decades from various artists, with stories that will come from Jeff Johns, Daryl Banks, Charlotte Fullerton, McDuffie, Sina Grace, Meg Grell, Jeff Lemire, Ron Mars, Denny O'Neil, Fernando Passarin, Ivan Riaz, Rafa Sandoval, Peter J. Tomasi, James Tynion IV, Robert Venditti, and many, many more. The comic will hit store shelves on May 20th and will retail for $9.99. My apologies to Marco Tamaki there. Anyway, let's go on to Marvel news. Mariko Tamaki. Avengers Endgame not winning an Oscar was kind of a disappointment. Well, it's not winning that makes history, or infamy. Take your pick. Avengers Endgame's shutout at the Oscars marks the first time the film has become the highest grossing movie of all time, but didn't win an Oscar. Endgame made nearly $2.8 billion worldwide. You kind of feel sorry and not sorry at the same time. The United Kingdom has some new heroes. Marvel is introducing a brand new super team called the Union in the Empire crossover event with the Fantastic Four and the Avengers. The tagline for the event is, quote, "Thanos is dead, so who is the biggest power in the universe?" Unquote. Vince McMahon? No, wait. That's WWE. The Union is written by Paul Grust and has art by Andrea DeVito and more. And they'll be out now. Michael Pena is unsure about the fate of his Marvel Ant-Man sidekick character, Lewis. The Hollywood Reporter talked with Pena on the press junket for his new movie, Fantasy Island, and they asked if he ever found out. He said, quote, I have no idea. Ant-Man is not going to be shot for another year or so. After my involvement in the first two Ant-Man movies, we really won't even know what's going to happen until 1 to 2 months before we film. I have no idea what's happening, to be honest, right now. Marvel is in a really cool position where they can break hearts by who they bring back and who they don't. But I'm still interested, even though I have no idea what's going to happen, and I can't wait to find out. Unquote. However, he is hopeful that he will be returning to the MCU. Speaking with comingsoon.com, he said, quote, for the last one, I didn't really know what capacity I was going to come back in, or if I was going to come back at all. I think they're a year away from filming. I think it would be great if I could do a third one, but you never know, especially with all the stuff that happened in Endgame. Right now, Marvel's in a situation where they can crush some expectations. They're going to have to crush some expectations of other characters, not just mine, so hopefully I make the cut. Unquote. Well, I think it would be tragic to do a third Ant-Man movie and not have the movie's hype man. He's one of a kind. So, last summer, the big story was the Spider-Man fight, followed by the ambassadorial effort of Spider-Man, Tom Holland, that resulted in a peace treaty between Sony and Disney. Now, Disney CEO Bob Iger thinks Tom Holland owes him a little something cool and refreshing. Mr. Iger wrote on Twitter, quote, last night's premiere of @Pixar's latest film, #Onward, gave me a chance to see @Marvel Studios friends, #Chris Pratt, and #Tom Holland. Tom owes me a pint for saving @Spider-Man. Unquote. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Maybe they should invite Sony Pictures CEO Tony Vinciquerra and make it a beer summit. Maybe iron out some more of those Marvel rights issues? Make it a huge shared universe? What do you say? Come on, Marvel. Come on, Sony. Let's get together. So, have you ever watched the Marvel movies and that quick succession of comic pages and wondered about the kissing couple that can be seen around the 6-second mark in the sequence? Well, a fan on Quora has figured out who they are. Dvorak Jenkins has figured out that they are Angelica Jones, aka Firestarter, and Vance Astrovic, aka Justice. You know what's interesting about those two? They're mutants. So technically, that makes them the first mutants in a Marvel Studios film. Kinda neat. Now, if Marvel Studios would just get down to using some of those mutants. Come on. Anyway, according to a new report from Illuminati, Sony is interested in Michelle MacLaren to direct the Spider-Man movie. MacLaren is best known for working on shows like Game of Thrones, Better Call Saul, and Breaking Bad, and if chosen, this would be her first feature film. The same report. According to a new report from Illuminati, Sony is interested in Michelle MacLaren to direct a Spider-Woman movie. MacLaren is best known for working on shows like Game of Thrones, Better Call Saul, and Breaking Bad, and if chosen, this would be her first feature film. The same report also says that they're looking into Alicia Vikander for the lead role of Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman. When more is announced, we'll let you know. Well, Avengers Endgame might have not gotten an Oscar, but they're bound to get a blimp from the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. Endgame walked out with 11 nominations. Also up for awards are A Series of Unfortunate Events, Power Ranger Beast Morphers, Stranger Things, The Flash, The Simpsons, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man Far From Home, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, Frozen 2, The Lego Movie 2, The Lion King, Secret Life of Pets 2, Toy Story 4, and many, many more. Trust me, if I were to list all these, it would take all day. The awards will be slimed out on March 22nd on Nickelodeon. Now, let's go to the geek news. So, Kevin Smith's Netflix Masters of the Universe series, Revelation, has announced its cast, and man, is it star heavy. The cast includes Mark Hamill as Skeletor, Lena Headey as Evelyn, Chris Wood as Prince Adam He-Man, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Teela, Liam Cunningham as Man of Arms, Stephen Root as Cringer, Diedrich Bader as King Randor / Trapjaw, Griffin Newman as Orko, Tiffany Smith as Andra, Henry Rollins as Triclops, Alan Oppenheimer as Mossman, Susan Eisenberg as Sorceress, Alicia Silverstone as Queen Marlena, Justin Long as Roboto, Jason Mewes as Stinkor, Phil Lamar as Hero, Tony Todd as Scareglow, Cree Summer as Priestess, Kevin Michael Richardson as Beastman, Kevin Conroy as Merman, and Harley Quinn Smith as Elena. Now, Kevin also told Newsarama that the only note he got from Netflix was to treat it seriously, quote, like Shakespeare. So he tasked his writer room, quote, we went in with this mantra of like, nobody is winking and nobody's acting like this is weirdness. Man at Arms, Stinkor, or no. It's all played incredibly Game of Thrones straight. If you like the style of Castlevania, just put He-Man through that filter, and it has that feel and look of it. It's anime style, unquote. Now, no release date for Master of the Universe Revelation, but we won't see it air probably until 2021. If the report from Diz Insider is true, Disney is working on another live-action version of another animated film. This time, it will be Rapunzel, which was animated in the movie Tangled about a decade ago. Michael DeLuca and Christian Burr are reportedly executive producing it with Zoe Kent, Jessica Virtue, and Lucy Gatita. No director has been announced. According to Variety, Disney is working on a sequel to its live-action Aladdin movie. The sequel is expected to be a theatrical release like the first one, and will be a completely new idea, and not based on the direct-to-video animated sequels, The Return of Jafar and Aladdin and the King of Thieves. Right now, it's unclear if Guy Ritchie will return to direct, but the film stars are all expected to return. But nothing is in place yet. Comicbook.com can confirm that John Gaddis and Andrea Berloff will be writing the script. And finally, Todd McFarlane has announced a Kickstarter campaign at the 2020 Toy Fair. This Kickstarter will recreate the original line of Spawn toys that were made with the Todd Toys logo, all released with classic packaging, but with the modern sensibilities and techniques that McFarlane Toys have become known for. Todd McFarlane said, quote, I'm going to start with him, points to original Spawn, and hopefully we'll end up getting all 6 of these. But we're going to take that original Spawn and we're going to do it and put it into a retro packaging, but we're going to use a modern day sculpt of it. The Kickstarter, unquote. This Kickstarter isn't live yet, but will be under the Masterworks category on Kickstarter. You know, I like a good Kickstarter. I give to the Rift Tracks Kickstarter every year. And that brings us to the end of the comic book news. And be sure to check us out on our social media. We're at Twitter at Multiverse Tom. We're also on Facebook and Instagram as well. And if you'd like to contribute some money, please go over to mtpodcast.com to go to our Coffee, Patreon, and now our glow.fm links as well. And be sure to go to visit Multiverse, go to multiversetonight.com and hit the support me link that's just at the top of the page. While you're there, go to the page and visit our affiliate marketplace links, the link to the TeePublic store, show notes, and much more. You know, the occasional column and all that. If you're a subscriber, please be sure to share us with your friends. And if you're brand new to the show, please be sure to subscribe and leave us with some feedback and let me know how we're doing. You know. Special thanks to Shane Ivers for the intro music and Lobo Loco for the outro theme music. Thanks for watching the comic book edition of Multiverse Tonight. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a brand new sci-fi edition. Now, please, exit the universe in an orderly fashion. Good night. Multiverse Tonight is a production of Half-Baked Genre Productions. Copyright 2020. All rights reserved. Do do do. Do 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 do. Let's see here. Do 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 do. Tonight, birds of prey. All right, we're all good, as the kids say. Well, thank you if you've come across this recording on Twitch or YouTube. You know, subscribe to me here, and you watch these videos. Go back and on YouTube, and you can watch all our old shows, all the interviews. I hope to have some new interviews next month. We're just a month out from Planet Comic Con, so I hope to get 1 or 2 interviews there. Really, Planet Comic Con's my vacation con, so really, I try not to make myself a lot of work at this. Besides, it's way too freaking crowded. Anyway,